All right. Sorry, I was on mute. Okay. So hope everyone can hear me well, and thank you so much for joining once again. Glad to see so many faces. All right, then let's get started. And hope everyone can see my screen as usual. And so today we are going to start off with a very interesting topic, which is logging. And as developers, this is something that we are in need of in our day-to-day lives because in production, right? So as usual, we always want to give the best to our clients, and also we want to make sure that we deliver a high quality product at the end of the day with minimal issues. But the thing is, like, there might be certain cases, like there might be issues that you might not anticipate, and logging is something that will help you to sort of stay one step ahead and get things done quickly. So without further ado, let's start on what is logging. Just simply, I know most of y'all might know logging. So basically, logging means just recording the general information of a program's execution. So meaning of that simply is like, let's say we have an application, right? Like we use in our day-to-day lives, like Uber Eats or any application, literally. So whenever we interact with the application under the hood, there are certain things that are being recorded. So first of all, in software development, whatever we do, whatever principle that we apply in our day-to-day life, we always ask the first question is, why do we do it? Just not for the sake of doing it, right? There's always a valid reason. So when it comes to logging, it's always sort of a safety net for us developers at the end of the day to sort of solve problems and issues when things go wrong. So I'm not going to spoil anything more further. We'll go along the road and see how things turn out. And now let's have some fun breakthrough. So I think many of us can relate to this scenario right here. So I got this funny meme that I came across, and yeah, let's see how it goes. So this is something life without logging, which is something that I have also experienced and which I've learned from it. So as we all on a Friday, we will just go ahead and push a nice feature, and then we're like, okay, finally push the code, done, it's all merged, and plus testing is all done, you push it all out, right? And then after a couple of sometimes, like the product manager or the client would reach out and say, hey, there's something going on here, and could you see what's up? And then you'll be sort of confused because all the tests passed, and it's like something you never saw coming, right? And then you are kind of starting to think around, okay, what's going on? And without proper logging, you can't exactly figure out, like, okay, this is exactly what's going wrong. But it might take some time. You can dig around, but if you don't have logging, you are just going to spend a little bit of time just trying to sort of find a needle in a haystack. So you are just going to go around and kind of go a bit crazy, and then it's not going to end up pretty well. So in that case, let's talk about life with logging, right? And then let's say you have proper logging, you're just chilling the day, and then you get a notification, right? And then okay, there's some error going on. Let's say you worked on an area like managing products, right? And then you see, okay, there's an error when like a product is being added and so on. And that's something you recently worked with. So, okay, this might be the case, and you have enough information that you can make use to sort of quickly go and make the fix. And by the time your client or the product manager comes and says, hey, like there's some issue that was there our users were facing last night, and you'll be like, yeah, it's already done and fixed. So it gives a good impression. Also, it sort of ensures the client that we are always having that full observability within the application's ecosystem. So that's the whole purpose of logging. It's just staying one step ahead. But yes, then again, after adding logging, like you might then again need some time to fix the issue, but you will stay one step ahead, and at least you will sort of have that extra safety net. So it's always good to have logging at the end of the day. So moving forward, I want to start with the log levels. So whenever we do logging, we can, like I showed in the very beginning, right? When you click a button, when you navigate to a page, the system records. So we have to decide what are we going to log first. So I already have a project as well, which I'm going to showcase live on demo. So in this case, I have a simple API where I can add products, and then I record certain information. So once again, this is just a sample, just I'm mimicking to recreate the scenario. because here like I'm doing some switching as well. So it's just to give the basic idea, but we'll talk further on a real project, like we'll be using middlewares, but this is taking you all from the basics and we'll talk it from there. So starting from the top, as you can see, when we're adding a product, I'm adding informations like adding a product and then what sort of a product I'm adding, and then I need certain information of where the person is from. So this is once again, logging is something that's what we do in order to save information that will help us later on when there is an issue, right? So here it might give an impression I am saving data, but that's just for the example for to give the understanding. But when we are adding a log, we have to be sort of thorough on because we don't want to go towards analytics. This is sort of troubleshooting, right? So we have to keep that aspect as well. It's mostly towards troubleshooting. So this is all purely example, but to get the concept. So as you can see, I'm adding all the information here, and you all can see I'm logging through different levels: debug, information, error, and then we can either make this as a warning as well, right? So what happens if we log each and everything if once a user sends a request? So if I go to the Swagger, so I have a product API where I can add a product, and then once I add a product, there will be certain set of information logs which will be saved in the backend, which in the service where I can come and later use for investigation if there's an issue. So here we can see we are only printing the information, because if we go and print every single thing, like even the debug statements, like our storage costs are going to get like very high, and then there's like so much logs, right? In that case, then you would ask me, okay, why then do we have debug statements and information and like different versions of it? So it's like this. Whenever when we write a log, we have to we can categorize them per levels. One is starting from fatal, error, warning, info. So if it's something really important, let's say you are having an API which does something, right? And then you want to sort of warn a user if like it goes through a certain path, then we will print a warning statement. So we can control this set of flags based on scenarios, and we will only print them when there is a certain situation. So I'll talk about this in detail in the coming slides. And yeah, let's go further. And moving on. Okay, so the plan for today is we are going to do logging, and then I'm also going to highlight how to sort of like I showed earlier, right? Simpson is sort of staying around, and then he at the first scenario when he did not have logging, he was sort of confused and he had no idea what to do. But with login, he will sort of get that notification, and right after he'll just get into action then and there. So starting off, looking at our diagram right here. So as we all who work on .NET Core, we know that .NET has this base abstraction logging the basic flow, so we can make use of that and do logging. But there are frameworks out there. If you have the need only, you can make use of them and then sort of improve your logging experience because they offer more features, and then you can make use of that logs and then use them for decision making. So in order to do decision making, you need to push all your logs to a service, right? So we'll go on that as well. And then again, when there's an error, you would like to be notified. So different organizations rely on different communication services. So some of the organizations rely on Microsoft Teams, some of them rely on Slack, some of them just maybe not Telegram really, but I just added that sort of so communication service in case to show that we have that ability to sort of use whatever that's there. And so yeah, so that's the whole plan for the day. So once we go with the flow, we will get the whole picture at the end. Yeah, so first question is what I would say is why is Serilog, right? So once again, what I want to say on this diagram is, so in the session today that I'm doing, I'm talking about Serilog and then pushing to Slack. And then I'm also pushing to application insight so we can get that whole summary. Like if there's an issue, we want to get that whole graphical sort of output so we can make a decision, right? But I want this session to be for y'all to like take the concept in mind and then also see what are the other possibilities. So here I have also noted down the alternatives because I'm not sure, like there might be people in the audience who might work with AWS or maybe from Java and so on. So most of these platforms and even on other languages, the same concept is applied. So you can get the, even though I do it on Serilog and App Insights today, y'all can also focus on all the other platforms and y'all will get that same relatable scenarios. So yeah, let's go ahead and see how things go. And starting off, structured logging. So this is one of the key benefits that I liked on Serilog. So if we go back to like the demo, so here, whenever I add a product, I can actually save the object like of that entity. So this is very useful. Like also we have to be very thoughtful. We should not always go and just log an object, but there are use cases that we have the need and it's safer to do. Like maybe you added a new feature and you want to add like several set of logs just to keep uh, things going, and maybe you might be working with like a very critical service where you have to sort of keep track of all the entities that you keep adding, right? So let's say one record goes missing, so that's something critical. So it also like it's mainly on the scenario, but it's better to know that there's a feature like this that you can make use of, and you should decide, okay, this is exactly where I should use it. So going back, yeah, structured logging. So back in the day, like the most systems that I've seen, they just had like just a string. So if I come back once again, here we can see when the app starts, just the simple now listening and so on. But we can also have this object saved as a string, because then when we do querying, which I'm going to show later on, it's going to be so much useful. All right. So structured logging is one benefit. And then moving on is, yes, this is some of the examples once again. So if we log the information, like I can literally save the object and we can then query later, which I'm going to show. And yes, let's go to the next slide. Okay, and this is one of the favorite features of Serilog, like that I really like, which is sync. So Serilog provides us ways like to push our log entries to literally like any platform, any sort of service. So for example, right, as we saw, we are printing logs. So Serilog has varieties of things developed by the communities. And for example, let me just try to take you guys on just a second. Yeah, so if we go to the like Syncs documentation, like there's so many places where we can push our logs, which is the Azure Cosmos DB or Microsoft Teams, like so many platforms, or if you want to push it to a database, like there's like so many options that you can decide to push your errors or logs. It may be Telegram or WhatsApp. It's completely up to you based on your organization, what communication service or data store that they use. You all have the complete freedom to navigate, which is something that I really like. And the change is also minimal. So yeah, for example, communication services, like in our organization, we fully rely on Teams, but some organizations might use Slack and so on. And then you can also push into the database as well, your logs, if that's a preference. SQL Server, same thing. And then you can push to a service where it will collect all your logs and telemetry, all those informations, and let you come up with a nice visualization of all the errors and so on. So with things, it's very easy to do the switch, because let's say, right, you guys are working on Azure, and after a certain time, you all are willing to migrate to AWS for some reason, maybe cost effective or so on. But in that case, making the switch is so easy. Like I can showcase the code as well when it comes to configuration, and I'll be sharing this all through our Ascentic GitHub repository, so everyone can sort of play around and also get back to us if there's any doubts. So for example, if I'm talking about the configuration, right, it's very simple. Like um, I'll talk about this more, but like I said, all I have to do is write to Slack. So if it's MS Teams, I just need to install the package and say Microsoft Teams, and then a couple of configurations like the webhook URLs, all those settings. Once I set it up, all the errors will end up coming to the Microsoft Teams channel. So whenever there's a bug in production, like there'll be a message directly, and someone can just jump in and fix it then and there before the customer comes and puts up a complaint or whatsoever. So yeah, that's one of the coolest features that I really like, and the community has provided amazing support when it comes to things like most of the platforms that I see, like there is a sync developed. But then again, let's say there's some new platform that's there, like let's say some new social media platform that you want to push it. And if they provide proper APIs that they have, like through their documentations, you can create the sync by your own. There are guides for that as well. So yeah, Serilog is really flexible. And enriches, this is also something very common in most of the frameworks. So whenever we are logging an error, we can specify a structure. So for now, I have just set it up in a way I can set up the time, what sort of the critical level of the log that I'm logging in, and then the thread ID. And I can like have a format. Maybe, yeah, I could have added the date here. So the flexibility is like you can do as much as you want. So if you're a lead on a team and you all are having a certain standard when it comes to logs, it's fully configurable. So yeah, simply that's what's all about enriches. And then moving on, dynamic levels. So before, right, I mentioned that we have different levels of logging, like information, debug, and then warnings and so on, right? So going back to the code once again, here we can see like we are adding a product, we are seeing adding product successful, and then like so many entries here, right? But information is something, okay, it's good to sort of record every single time the API is being called. But let's say, right, there's an issue in production, and then you want like more information. Then only we need to see all these debug entries. So to give a more idea on this, I will run this API and show like an example. So currently in production, like in this instance that I'm running, I have the entries under information. So logs, which are information within the information level scope, will be shown here. So let's say, okay, I'm adding a product, right? And then I'm going ahead and executing this API. So once we run this, yes, so as you can see, it called the handled add product, and then adding the product, user purchasing the product from this location, and then the API has been completed at this set of time. So we have that statements, right? But if we go back, there's more than that. So I have add product method started, and then add product method completed successfully. So those don't show up, right? Like we only saw the information logs. So if there's a bug, it'll be even useful to have this, so that we know, okay, exactly within this line the code fails, like if it's a really sporadic issue and something that you can't find. So what dynamic levels does is, if there is a problem in, so let's say Mr. Simpson goes and orders a pizza for the first time in the starting of the day, right? And he clicks a flavor and he tries to add it. The flavor doesn't add up to the pizza. But then, like, as a developer, like, so let's say I'm working on the pizza app, and then I'm like, okay, I get a message, okay, for the first time when he tried to add the flavor, like these are the log entries that were there, but it's not enough for me to understand, okay, what was the real reason that the flavor wasn't added to the pizza, right? There should be some sort of an error. So at the initial time when there is a failure, we can when the exception throws, we can catch that exception, and then we can enable debug logging. So after the first error, for the subsequent request, we'll be recording the debug logs as well. So to show this practically, so as we saw, we only got the logs which are related to the information category. So I'm going to purposefully fail this API. So I have this flag where I'm like gonna like purposely go and like make it fail. So in that case, we can replicate the scenario. So when I hit execute, so as you can see, like adding the product fails, right? So now with the existing logs on the information, it's not that helpful. So I need more information to diagnose the issue and, figure things out. So in the next subsequent request, is see now it's starting to log the debug entries as well. So in that case, okay, now I have more log entries like line by line. Okay, it's went through this line of the code and this line of code and so on. So I know, okay, it went through this part exactly line by line. And then I can, okay, I know what's the cause. But then again, if you can't find it, you have to maybe adjust the way you're logging because you're not properly recording certain information. So yeah, that's the main thing about dynamic level. So it switches based on the situation. So in that case, we will only record those very debug level logs when we have the need to do so. So that's something that's really cool, and it will help us save storage costs. And after certain time, you can configure your code to fall back to information. Then it will only again start recording all the usual information like log entries. So moving forward, again, another feature is filters, which is also really cool. So for example, right, we are logging all these entries that we have here. And let's just say we are using some third-party service, like a client service in our app, and that service might return like some sort of an error, right? But maybe for some reason we don't want even a notification or even a log entry for that specific error, because maybe it's like a known thing or it really doesn't give any value, and we simply just don't want it as a log entry. In that case, what we can do is under our configuration, we can add that filter saying, okay, if there is a log entry with a property of this, having a value of this, there are different ways you can set that filtering. So in this case, I'm saying if there is any log entry that has a property called um, count, then, and if the value is less than 10, do not record those log entries. So you can have the condition any way that you would like, and then sort of exclude certain logs. So in that case, for example, right, like I said before, when there's an error, I would like to have a Teams message. But then again, if there is an error that I don't want to get through the chat, because no point if there's nothing that's a use of that error, right? So in that case, I can exclude that specific log entry, and then that will solve that problem. So those are the main key features from Serilog that I sort of came across and we make use in our applications. And up next is sort of getting started on the project. So I'll give a quick introduction on the project as well, on how things have been structured. So y'all can just kick off the project, play around. So once again, this project is just a playground. Like I haven't like gone in and applied like deep principles like middleware, because that is something you can first get the basic understanding and then you can apply the concepts over there. But then again, please feel free to reach out if there's any doubts or if you want to sort of know, okay, what's sort of the next step, and we can definitely guide you through that. So yeah, so to start off, let's say you have a .NET project and you would like to start with Serilog. It's really simple. All you have to do is install these two packages. So first is the usual NuGet package of Serilog. And as you can see, there's a good reputation and the community is doing a great job maintaining it. And we also have the application insights things. Like I said, I like to push things to the application insights. And then I also have another package, which is the sync, which I push to Slack, which I show that as well. And then, yeah, so we just need to set up all those packages, and then that'll be the first step. So we go with the packages, and then we have to also do some configurations. But before that, we also need to install the Microsoft application SDK, like ASP.NET Core. They have this package that you need to install that will then enable certain features on App Insight to work within your project. So I'll showcase the benefits and the result of doing so. And yeah, before we go to the configuration, I talked about the notification flow, so I'll show that part as well. But yeah, let's go to the configurations first. So once we install Serilog, right, in the project, so let's go to the code base and have a quick look. We have installed application inside ASP.NET Core, and then the Serilog packages. And here you can see I have installed the Slack sync, also the application inside. So like I said, if you want to go with MS Teams, you have to install the MS Teams package. And once you do that, you have to then do the configuration in your code. So Serilog offers two ways of configuring logging in your project, right? So one is you can set it up in the JSON file. That's one approach. And the other is through the code. So I prefer to go through with the code because it gives me more flexibility in my opinion, but I'm not going to say the code is better than setting it up in the JSON file. But having it in the code, like I can do a lot of things. For example, if I showcase my code, right, we have this application hosted in Azure App Service. So sometimes I have the need, like, let's say we are running an API, right? Get fruits or something, which gets the list of all available fruits in the system. So someone comes and says that API is really slow, and then I want to see, okay, is the query, the SQL query that's written over there is kind of good. So let's say we are using Entity Framework Core, right? So as we all know, Entity Framework Core, when there is an execution under the hood, there's a SQL that is being generated based on how you have written the link query. And now for me to see, is that SQL something that's properly written in the way that I have done right now, I can just go to my app settings JSON and say that for all Microsoft Entity Framework Core commands, I want them to be printed as information. So in EF Core, if you enable that login for that namespace, you can see all the SQL queries that are executed through that API. So likewise, there's like so much possibilities that you can make use of if you go with the code. Like, because what I have done here is, let's say in my Azure App Service, I want to go and enable that logging just for Entity Framework Core, right? In that case, all I have to do is just go to the Azure App Service settings and then toggle that. So it's really convenient. So you have that freedom any way you want. Like, you can be creative and make adjustments here. So that's why I prefer it. And let's say we move this API service to AWS or any other platform that supports running this .NET Core API, then there's nothing much to do because everything is within the code. So it's really nice. So yeah, that's something that I really liked about going with the code configuration approach. But then again, it's up to you to decide. Yeah, and talking about that, now since we were in the configuration, so here we can see I'm setting up use Serilog, and then I'm saying, okay, the minimum level is, I have set it as, usually it's information, and then I will get the configuration. So here in the JSONs, I'm saying default logging, whatever the logs that is should be information. And then if it's Entity Framework Core, it should be information, and so on. So I can have that sort of level of logging for each, like even package wise. So you might introduce a package, let's say, that will send emails, right? So in that package, you want all sorts of logs that package has to offer, so you can have that full granular level control. So yeah, that would be really cool to sort of adjust based on your setting through the code. All right, so let's just go back and I'll show how the Slack thing work as well. So here, as you can see, I did a failure a while ago when I showed the log flow to you guys. So once the failure happened, if I go into the browser, I have this Slack channel that I had created for the demo. So here we can see, okay, at this amount of time, I think, yeah, 4:53, just a while ago, there has been an error in the add product API. And then we can see the level of the log entry. So it's an error. So that also I can control. I can only set errors to come as messages. So I can, okay, quickly jump in, get the fix done. And by the time client comes and says, okay, there was an issue, it's already done. So it's really, this feature is really useful when you're working on like very critical projects where there's like so much of users in the application and you all are like very concerned. So in that case, having this setup is really, really helpful before there's more damage done. So yeah, so this is a small demo on that. And again, the code is there. All right, so next we have to look on the application insights. So before I go ahead and show the application insights dashboard and what are the services that we make use of to like do all these investigations, I would also like to encourage the alternative platforms that are out there, because we have to always decide what service are we going to use based on the client's need, the budget, the like the existing services that what the client is using for other like applications that they already have. So we have to take all those factors in, and then we have to see, okay, what's the most suitable and beneficial for that specific client and go with it. So just to share some of the cool like other services where you can push log entries and have that whole observability experience, which is the ELK stack from AWS, which is really good. I used it on one of the automobile like DMS platform projects that like it was really good because we used to have these on-prem servers where we save the logs on like the on-prem hard disk. So we had to like let's say there was an error on like January 1st. We had to go back and find that text file and then open that text file, go through find that specific time slot, grab that string and then see, okay, there's an exception in this code line and so on. But now with this observability experience that we are getting from these services, we can just go query, we can get notified. So it's really nice. So ELK stack is really amazing if you're on the AWS platform. And then I've also seen Prometheus is also something that's going around, and Grafana, which is also helpful to do the visualization part. And then SEQ is also another platform that I've seen, one of the projects that I worked earlier that they adopted because of the cost effectiveness of their service as well. So you have to decide what's best for your project. Maybe if you're like a start doing like a startup your own product or something like that, you can maybe start with a very small service that has like a very affordable cost, and later on you can do that migration once you sort of reach that revenue and you want more control on what you're logging, and which will, if you have that need to do that full investigation. So in that case, yes, let's go ahead with the platform. So let's go to the dashboard. So I've created this application insights instance. So first thing is we have this overview page. So most of these are very like you can just go there and it's so simple, like nothing much to explain, but I'll just go quickly one by one on how I use it in my day-to-day life in our project. So whenever like I want to just see the healthiness of our application, I just come across the application insight instance on Azure, and I can link multiple applications. Like I can link the front end, the back end, and maybe I might have an Azure function, another service. I can like link so much, like so many services, and then have that map. So talking about the overview, you can see the number of failed requests. So we can see somewhere around like after 4:45. So I showed you guys like I failed a request. So we can see there was one failure, and then the server response time, how soon is our server like sort of responding back, and then the number of requests. The availability can also be set up, like we can have like tests like back to back and sees like how often like the server is active, like is there downtime and stuff like that. And then again, the usual activity log, and I'll jump to application map, which is something that I really like. So the project that I have developed for this demo, to sort of give you all the experience, this API that I have, so you guys have seen that I'm adding the products here, right? So I'm adding these random words like television, Whirlpool, and so on. So all this data I'm getting from a random API. So already application insight is smart enough to know that our API is sort of dealing with this random data API, and it also gives that summary. Okay, there is a dependency from our API to that service, and these are the number of calls that are happening. This is how long it's going to take. And so if there are amount of failures, we can like it will branch out. So if you have like so many third-party services in your application and you want to have that full picture on what's going on, this is something that's really fun. Because if you see right here, so this is the heart of everything, which is the API that I have right now. And then at the top, this is another API where I want to get the latitude and the longitude, just some sample values, because I will show you guys later why I'm doing that. And then, yeah, the product, like I mentioned, like a get random product. So, and then like I said, errors are being pushed to the Slack, which is the messaging platform here. So that entire map is created here, and I can see all the dependencies, how long it's taking, and so on. So if you have so many services, you will see like, okay, maybe this service is taking so long. Can we do something to optimize that? Is there like any caching layer that we can add over there to make things, more high performance? So you get that really nice view. It's really nice when you have the front end and the back end and everything set up. So yeah, today's session is all about the back end, but you can also integrate the front end as well, which I'll give some slight introductions once we reach the end. And then we also have live matrix, which is also something really cool. So let's just say so in our project, like one of the first projects that I worked, it was like it had a very large customer base, and they always had like concurrence issues and like so much of issues going on over there. And it was like on several time periods, like at around like evening, somewhere around 2 o'clock when there's like huge traffic amount of users. So in a dashboard like this, you can see what's going on right now in production. So if we see here, we can see the number of API calls that are going now, what is the failure rate, what's the CPU usage, and are there any number of exceptions that's happening, like any errors going on. So that entire breakdown, like you can just have that view, and then okay, there is certain things happening, and you can sort of try to get that pattern and then start an investigation. And also if I try to like execute this product API again. So this is the local console, right, where we see all the logs. So here we can see that live logs that are being added here. So you can like instantly see if there's a failure. Okay, this guy just had a failure, and I can just take an action then and there. So this is also very useful, and we can see all the product information and everything is being added here. So that's something really cool, and we'll talk more on the logs going forward. And yeah, up next is transaction search. So this is also really cool. Like we can see all the activities in our application. Like for example, you can set up the front end as well here, and you can get the number of page views, number of like errors, and maybe from the front end you want to save certain set of data. So all of those things you can like set it up, and then you can have that whole visualization and everything. So you can do all those filtering, and it'll be really easy to find issues. And in the front end, like in the project that we are working currently, we have set up the front end as well. And there we can see the user's pathway as well. Like the user logged into this page, and then he went to the cart, he went back to step one. So you can like see how the user navigated, and how if he faced an error, like let's say, like I said before, when adding a flavor. So we can say, okay, when he reached this page at this specific time from this location, like you get all the details, like which will help you to sort of find a pattern to sort of say, okay, this is the exact reason that this specific user is facing this issue, and then you can get to it. So that's transaction search. And then availability is having like health checkups on your APIs time to time to see the availability. So this is something we already, I think most of us are doing. And then again, failure, something very specific, very general, like all the failures you can see here. So that's something normal. Again, performance, to see all the APIs that are, how they're performing, how long they're taking, and so on. And also on Azure, you can set up the alerts as well. But there is a cost here, but it's not that pricey. I mean, it's just $1. Like I'll come back to this a bit later because I'm going to talk on queries. So then I can come back and explain more on alerts. And then metrics is something, again, if you want to have stats, like let's say you want to keep track of how many fruits were brought, purchased today by users. And like, I'm just giving like a usual example, but it has to be more technical for you to troubleshoot things, not like, because you're already saving data to the database, right? It's like, why do we have to again have a save? So here what we are saving is like for troubleshooting related scenarios. So I'm just giving all these fruits fancy examples so that you will get that picture, that we can, get that visualization. So like I said, yeah, adding fruits counts and like adding to the cart. So if you want to get that summary, you can make use of metrics, and you can customize the graphs and everything. So I will do like a query, and I'll show like a basic, since we have, I think, a very short period amount of time. And but nothing to worry, we'll be also publishing an article, so it'll have everything there. And up next we have the logs, which is like, I'm not going to say kind of like a database where you can see all the logs which is saved in the table within this service. So I think that's next what we are going to talk mostly about. And then there's workbooks for analytics, like you can do heart analytics on your front end app. So this is not something we are going to cover today. Maybe it's something you can play around. They have some really nice guides. And then we also have sessions, like how many users are active, like with application insights, like there's endless like data that you can get from like how the users are interacting with your app from both the front end and the back end. So let's get back on track, and moving on with the next segment, which is KQL. So we talked about pushing logs, right? And then like what's next? So now we have been having meaningful logs in our system, And then we want to know like, okay, there's some issues I want to get to know on what's going on and things like that. So on Azure, most of their services have this querying language called KQL. So we have to use KQL to query our logs and do certain things and get that output data. So if you are a person who has worked with SQL, Microsoft has an amazing guide which you can just go through it, and within 1 or 2 hours you get really good at this, and then you'll know how to query your logs in any way you want. So I'm going to do this on a scenario based approach because I don't want to like push you guys on theory. I want to just give a nice example so y'all can just get that picture. So I have this scenario like I want to see the performance of my APIs. So let's go ahead and have some fun on the log search. So let's go to logs. So this is the most of the uh, like I spend my time most of the time like in here in this log section because I can go and query all the logs and get visualizations. So how I will do is, let's say someone is saying that uh, like let's say we developed our product and we want to improve the speed of our application because we got the initial requirements done, and now it's time to make the application more faster and get that speed performance. So in that case, I want to sort of start a quick investigation, and then like I said before, maybe we have bad queries written because we might have had resources just rushing because we wanted to get like an initial prototype for the client. So in that case, now it's time to do the cleanup and get things polished and more faster. So in that case, I will come to this view, and there are many tables in this like area. Like you can see request tracers, exceptions, and so on. So if we look at the requests table, so if I just type requests and then if I run it, we can see the table which will show all the API calls at the moment that has happened a while ago. So here I can see I have been adding products for the last couple of minutes, and then I have also sent some messages. So I have these three APIs which are like really slow, and I have written a code to sort of fake the scenario so I can give you guys a picture. And for example, let me show the notification service. So here I'm doing like a delay. So we have these three platforms where we can send messages. Like SendGrid is a nice service where you can use to send emails from your application. And there's Postmark, Twilio. So I'm just creating an example where I'm like simulating a fake delay. So if we look at our APIs and if we call each API, um, SendGrid will perform really slow. Postmark will be really fast. So now we know that. So I'm just faking it so I can show on logs how we can get that output. So if I go back quickly to the request table, and then you guys can see all the requests, right? That's been happening so far. So I would like to only make use of some of the columns that I have here. So I'm going to get the name of the API. So let's get the name. And then I also would like to get the duration. So I'm writing a very simple query, but we'll be having a nice article, which we will have more descriptive queries since the time limitation. So let's run this again, and then I will just, it's like SQL, you might figure it out. It's really easy to catch up. And then I will then try to summarize because I need to get that whole aggregation. Because once again, if I go to the PPT, KQL works like in a funnel based approach. Like you'll have so much records and it just keeps coming down. And now what I'm doing is I'm just getting rid of the data that I don't want. And I'm like trying to construct the data that I need. So I'm going to get an average of the duration by the API name. And then I will also do a order by, and then I'll order by all the APIs by name. So if I run this, um, okay, so here we can see all the APIs, and like I said, SendGrid is a very slow API, so we can see the average duration is like 10 seconds, and then Postmark is a really fast API, which is like 2 seconds, and so we can see that performance, and we can, there's more, like you can go really deep and get like so much statistics on here, but this is just basic to give that basic idea, and then maybe I like to see this more graphically, like I want to see it in a nice graph, so I can maybe select this to look maybe in a bar chart. So let's go ahead with a bar chart, and then I can see this nice visualization. Okay, I think it will take some time. Okay, feel like there is like a network delay. However, the outcome would be something like this. So it will generate a graph instead, and you can just see that nice breakdown visually. So it's really good for decision making. So for example, right, your client is giving you all a requirement saying we have this old legacy application and we want you all to improve the performance, and you all can first get like this whole summary and showcase them. Okay, so these are the APIs that needs improvement. What do you want to prioritize? Maybe our client says like this API is like this user scenarios gets us more income, so we would like you all to prioritize that. So in order to for to get that like um, requirement from them, right? To tell them, okay, there's a delay in this set of areas. You need that data and all these visualize. So with logs and everything, you can get all those data. So here, as we can see, um, SendGrid is taking so long to respond. So we definitely need to improve that API call. Like we need to find out what's going on. So yeah, I think that's it on the querying stuff. And a big thing that we have to keep in mind when we are doing logging is we always have to worry about users' privacy data. We should never log in like a data that of a user that we can personally identify them, because it otherwise we'll be violating the California Consumer Protection Act and GDPR. And then there's so many other like regulation authorities that will sort of come on you like if you sort of violate this. So you have to always be careful and not consider logging users data at all. Like there's no reason why you should do that, but also yeah, just keep that in mind. And yes, so I'll just go next on the stuff. So apart from this, there is also like an analytics side as well, but in our case as developers we are mostly towards like troubleshooting, but you can also focus on analytics. For example, like it'll go towards the data analytics side, but I just wanted to say there is a other side on this. So you can, if you have more data, like I said, I'm recording all these latitude and longitudes, like you can have this set of location set up, like you want to see who are the active users. So maybe you want to see like there are users in Japan, and maybe on US you want to study how quickly they are getting the data back, the latencies and all those things. So in that case, yeah, that's a troubleshooting scenario. So that's what I want to like give the picture, not like towards the analytics side. So yeah, you can make use of that. And other things is you can use let statements, like because if you start writing a big query, it's going to get messed up. So you can write let statements and make things more cleaner. And user defined functions, which is again like similar to kind of stored procedures in databases, just kind of that picture. So you can set up functions so you can reuse them. So these are very common. And for pricing, you can go ahead to like the Azure Monitor, and they have the usual Azure calculator, and then they have all the stats. So they're like how many gigs of logs you are going to save. And then if I just go ahead quickly. Okay. Yeah, so if we try to go for the pricing, they have the pricing table. Also, they have a calculator as well. So if you are logging like a GB per day, like there is a certain set of range that they have specified based on what type of logging you're saving. So they have basic logs and analytics logs, which we kind of talked about now. So you can decide based on your requirement, and then you can also check on other platforms and then work it out. So it's really cool that they have given us the calculator and we can make use of it. And pretty much yes. So these are all the references that I have attached that you can further go to and improve your knowledge. And Microsoft Learn has given a nice pathway for you to take the whole KQL querying learning curve. So you can start from a very basic flow, and then if you have worked with SQL, it's going to be really quick. But yeah, they have really done it in a really nice way. And also, when it comes to cost optimization, make sure to keep all those bandwidths, because if you end up pushing so many logs, you're going to get a huge bill at the end of the day. So keep that in mind. And yes, moving on. There are some also references that if anyone is interested, you all can go through. Like there are some controversial discussions on, do we really need Serilog? We can use the basic Microsoft and so on. So there are like several cool articles that I read. So y'all can just check it out, and make sure to follow our Authentic Technology Medium article sections because our developers are posting cool stuff. I think bi-weekly basis. So y'all can just stay tuned. And what I talk today, I'll have more descriptive information over that article, which I'm going to post very soon. And Lulu will notify everyone, so y'all can check it out. And then there'll be more details over there. Y'all can post comments if y'all have doubts, and I'll get back to y'all. And please feel free to ask anything or any doubts over there. And I'm super happy to clarify them. And then also make sure to follow our Ascenti GitHub. There's some cool projects over there. And the project that I showed you guys right now will be over there in the coming few days. And y'all can get it clone and then play around and also ask questions. And yeah, let me know if there's anything. And yes, so I think we've reached the end. So if anyone has any questions, now's the time. And please feel free to ask anything. And yeah, I'll be happy to clarify. And in case I don't have the answer now, I'll get back to you guys. Yeah. I can hear myself, sorry.
Thank you so much, Shazni. That was incredible. I don't know how many words you spoke per minute, but I think it was a lot.
Yeah, there was a lot. That was a lot.
But we do have some questions. We have a question from Pasandu.
Okay.
Any advice for best logging practices?
Yes, totally. So when it comes to best practices, yeah, that's a really good question. And thanks, Pasin, by the way. Like when you are in application insights, usage is the main thing you have to worry about because when we are setting up logs in the API, we have to always think about, is this entry really meaningful? So here I just did it for the example, right? But when you are writing in your project, you'll say, okay, when I'm adding this log entry, is this something that's really going to help me later on? Or is this something that will give that usefulness? So in that's something you have to think. And again, the cost, make sure to set up the daily cap. So I have set to 1 GB. So in that case, if we have so much of logs, because we might have huge traffic and that log might get thousands and thousands of, and you end up with a huge bill and so many issues, right? So keep an eye on that, and also don't log in personal data. So those are like the main key advices. Always know why and when to use logs, and you'll be fine. Yeah, thank you for the question. That's a really good one.
Thanks. And I've got another one sent to us via Instagram from someone who wasn't able to attend, but it was, sorry, I'll just paste it here. Is it a must to use Serilog?
So it's like this. So like I said, Serilog is a preference that we wanted to use in our team, but in your team, like you all might have strict regulations over there, and you all might be limited to the Microsoft basic logging framework. So you can still make use of some of the features that is in that base level package. Sometimes you might not need all these fancy features that I showed you guys. So in that case, you all can stick to it. And there are like workarounds, like you can write some extra custom code to make it work. But still, if it is better than getting in Serilog, you all can go for it. So it all depends on your project nature. So yeah, that's something that you all have to think and discuss with the leads. Yeah.
Awesome. Does anyone have any other questions that they'd like to ask Shazni before we wrap up for today? No, I think we might be good. Thank you to everyone for joining us today for our first one for the year. We plan to do a lot more, so stay tuned. If you follow us on Instagram, LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, or just send us an email, we can keep you updated on everything that's happening. As they say in Sweden, have a continued good day, and we'll see you next month.
Thank you so much, all.